And so we ask you, Mr. President, how strong can a relationship that is built on pain, that is built on skepticism, and that is built on lack of trust really be? We, not just as a team here, but all of us in this room and the 5,000 who helped with the report and the millions more on the continent and off of the continent want a commitment from you, Mr. President, that you will join us in the eradication of La France-Afrique, which is a very unfair dominance, and it has to end.
Hello everybody, welcome once again to AfriPost. I believe wherever you're watching us from, you're doing great. Now, many a times in this channel, we've really tried to bring you videos and episodes where African leaders really stood up to the Western powers. In many aspects, we've always told you that there are certain leaders in Africa who are not easy to compromise because they stand by their ideals and they want to advocate for the respect of Africa in the global space. We've talked about people like Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, we've talked about people like Julius Malema, we've talked about people like Robert Mugabe, and many others, even people like Yoweri Kaguta Museveni of Uganda. But have you ever understood that the African youth has identified the challenges that Africa is facing? And many of them are standing up and standing against exploitation from the West. In many cases, we've known that some leaders in Africa have been used as puppets and they are ready to really go out there to pay homage to Western superpowers, people they love and respect, at the detriment of their own countries. In this video, I want us to look at this lady called Adele Onyango from Kenya. She is a media personality and she was talking directly to French President Emmanuel Macron, and she told him some important points that not many African leaders can dare stand and tell President Macron straight to his face. Kindly watch this video and then let's talk about it after the video. Let's watch.
Bonjour. Je m'appelle
Hello,
Adele Onyango.
I'm Adele
Je viens
Onyango,
du Kenya.
and I come from Kenya.
And that is exactly as far as my French will take me. So, I'm really honored and happy to be here today because I think it is no secret that the current relationship between Africa and France is complicated. And in order for us to build a relationship that addresses issues that affect not only Africa, not only France, but the globe, then it's important for us to interrogate this very complicated relationship and ask ourselves three things. One, what is not efficient? Two, what is not ethical? Three, where do we see integrity gaps? And to be able to do these three things, we're going to have to be brutally honest. The history of colonization is understandably very important. For Africa, it's a path that is as painful as it is destructive. And the effects of colonization can still be felt to date. And I'm not just saying economically, but even on an interpersonal level. We, as Africans, feel the pain of colonization every single day. Now, the lack of a clear and strong acknowledgement of the continent's pain on this destructive past results in skepticism. And the absence of actions that will further push the acknowledgement is also a major issue in the current France and Africa relationship. In fact, the air of denial that France chooses to sit in is uncomfortable, not only for Africa, but also for France, and it does no good for either one of us. How can you trust the source of your pain when the source doesn't acknowledge it? What we end up with is skepticism on what exactly does France stand for. And so we ask you, Mr. President, how strong can a relationship that is built on pain, that is built on skepticism, and that is built on lack of trust really be? We, not just as a team here, but all of us in this room and the 5,000 who helped with the report and the millions more on the continent and off of the continent want a commitment from you, Mr. President, that you will join us in the eradication of La France Afrique, which is a very unfair dominance, and it has to end. Furthermore, the breakdown in understanding what France fully stands for is fueled by the continued collaborations that France has with agencies, leaders, and individuals who have glaring integrity issues, whilst on the other hand, claiming to be standing for human rights. So on one hand, we have France that is entrenched in issues around racism, around exploitative dominance, and whilst on the other hand, they're still claiming to teach others about democracy. These are two profiles that one cannot fill at the same time. And when you try to do that, we find it rather arrogant. What it creates is a cognitive dissonance, which is that discomfort you feel because of these two conflicting values. It not only doesn't make sense, it is unsustainable, it births a negative perception, and an ambiguity in knowing once again what values does France stand for. Now, it is very clear, because we are all here, that the current relationship is imbalanced. It's not collaborative, and in some instances, it's exploitative. We have social impact solutions built without any input from relevant African civil society organizations who are a resource when it comes to really understanding problems on the ground and creating solutions that run efficiently. And they're a resource that Africa is willing to lend to France. Let's also not forget that whilst we in this room are here because we want to change and repair this relationship, there are some who are benefiting from this current dysfunctional relationship, be it private businesses from France on the continent with non-ethical practices, or corrupt individuals and groups from both France and Africa. This group, and the lack of a very loud and public condemnation of this, obviously fuels skepticism. So this honest interrogation is a very important first step, because the strengths and weaknesses of this current relationship will dictate the success or failure of our collective future relationships. But we are not only telling you what's not working. We are very solution-driven, which is much unlike the heads of states that you're used to meeting. We know exactly what you need to commit to today, and we have a clear path on how we can achieve that. And that is what my brother Arthur will share with you. Arthur, c'est à toi. Thank you.
Now, from that clip, you are really able to see that African youth have also come up to stand up for their continent. You'd note that African youth have also identified the fact that there is need for change, because as Adele Onyango talked to Macron there, I said that we have solutions to provide to you, something that you would not really receive from the presidents that you always love to meet. So it was really a good point, or even a good platform, that Adele Onyango got to really face off with Emmanuel Macron. I support everything that she has said there, because that is the pure truth. The relationship between Africa and France is not that of respect, because it is that of exploitation, where France, as a former colonizer, is really continuing to perpetuate its atrocities in Africa but at the same time also trying to advance democratic ideals that do not go together. And that is why Adele Onyango is kind of saying that what we have as the relationship between France and Africa is something that is confusing, because we do not know the kind of emotion to work with. Because at one point you try to sell us good ideals, but another point you are really coming up to fight us by exploiting our resources and creating differences between us as a continent. So I am in support of that, and really it is time for the African youth to stand up and rise to be counted, because the time for Africa to unite as one has come, and it is being led by the African youth. I want to give you an example of Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso. He is somebody who has really shown that Africa can rise and Africa can really stand up for its own people. The leaders that have been there in Burkina Faso before were like puppets of the West, and they were darlings of France. But when Ibrahim Traore came up, he saw the challenges that the country has been going through and why there is need for insecurity to be dealt with once and for all. And that is why he is really making important strides, regardless of the fact that there are those who are after his life, planning coups day and night to ensure that he is really reposed from his position. But that will not work, because even if they remove him, another African youth will rise. It is time for the African youth to take up their space and fight for what is right as a continent. Let's come together as African youths and champion for the growth of Africa. And that is what we are doing even in this channel. We are spreading this because I know many of you watch us from different parts of the world, and listening to us is a way through which we can awaken your spirit, the inner spirit of Africa, to feel like you need to really fight for your continent and stand up to be counted among people who really made Africa be respected outside here. So thank you for watching till this moment. Please, if you're watching us for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and also share. Thank you, and may the good Lord bless you. Goodbye.